Third down and 20.
But let's get into the first segment. Enough of this. I'm going to share this screen real quick, this graphic. We've got the Super Bowl odds, Super Bowl winning odds, round 1 and round 2 of the playoff odds. We're going to talk about the playoff picture going on right now in the league. I found this cool little website, playoffstatus.com. It shows just odds of each team making it to whatever. They got the Steelers 24% chance Super Bowl winner. I think that's a little high at this point in the season, to be completely honest. I guess this is just based off of their algorithm. I kind of want to ask this first question. What team that is like a Super Bowl favorite, doing really well in the league at the halfway point, what team do you think has the best chance of falling off?
Out of those, dude, I'm looking at it. I still think it's the Packers. Like, I don't know. Like, some weeks, like you saw when they played the Vikings, like a couple weeks ago, they just looked like a completely different team. And then they can go, and like we saw them play the Bucks also earlier this season, and they got dominated there too. Like, I feel like if the Packers play their game, they can compete with anyone. They can beat anyone. Like, I see why they're a huge Super Bowl favorite. But if there's like they've run into a problem or everybody didn't show up that day, then I could easily just see them like falling off and losing like the way they did last year in the NFC Championship. And like I know before the season I said the Packers are frauds. I don't think they're that much fraud still, but they do have a little fraud tendency still to me that if I had to pick out of the Super Bowl teams, they would be the ones that I could be like, yeah, I can see them falling off.
Yeah,
I think. Go ahead, Frank.
You can go, Lucas.
Okay. I think for me, I would say the Buccaneers. We're going to talk about them a little later in the podcast, but I mean, just to get blown out by the Saints like that, it's a really tough loss to take. And then in the next 3 weeks, they have, the Rams and Chiefs coming up, which are going to be 2 tough games. And I mean, if they lose both of those games and then get another upset, along the way, I mean, that's already 6 losses. And so most likely they're going to be looking at a wild card spot if they're in the playoffs. So I don't think they're necessarily in danger of completely falling out of the playoff picture, but I think the most likely scenario right now is they're going to be kind of in a tough wild card spot, and it's going to be hard to make it out of the NFC with the lower seed.
Yeah, they just had a really rough performance against the Saints. But like you said, we'll get into that later in the episode. But for me, I'm kind of curious on these round 1 of the playoffs. I guess this is just basically their percentage chance of being in the playoffs. The 2 that stick out to me a little bit are the Bears here at 64 and the Browns at 57. I think that these are 2 teams that this website, however they come up with these figures, I think that's a little bit high for both of these clubs. The Bears, they started off really strong, but their offense is just so ridiculously bad. They've definitely been cooling off these past couple weeks. Just that Titans game, I think it just really showed you, like, man, this team, they put up basically 0 points for most of that game. They were literally better off punting the football every possession up until the fourth quarter, and they would have had a better offense, statistically speaking. Like, I don't really know if I can buy into a team like that. And the Browns are just such a weird team, especially now that they don't have Odell. It's just tough. Yeah, they do get Nick Chubb back. It's just that in terms of all the AFC teams, I think you look at the Steelers, you look at the Ravens, the Titans, obviously the Chiefs. I just think that all those teams, specifically the first 3 I mentioned, play a brand of physical football, and they just kind of do it at a better level than the Browns do. Not saying that the Browns aren't going to make the playoffs. They definitely do have a decent shot. But I just think that, and then you start getting into teams like the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Colts. Like I just like all of those teams a lot more than I like the Browns. I think that they're a team that really can easily fizzle out of this playoff scenario, even though they're getting over a 50% chance, according to this website, of making the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely agree, especially with the Bears. Like them being 64% to make the playoffs is very like high to me because like you got to look at it like this: like whoever finished second in the NFC South is going to get a wild card spot, and then I still think it would be the second and third place team out of the West that gets the sixth and seventh spot. So them being at 64% doesn't make any sense to me, especially just how bad their offense has been all year. It seems like they just have never really been able to get anything going. And if they have them at a higher percentage than the Cardinals, I don't really understand that. I think the Cardinals have played much better ball this year than the Bears have.
Yeah, I guess on the contrary, real quick, are there any teams that you guys are feeling a lot more confident in now that we've seen halfway through the season? We've seen a handful of games that compared to the beginning of the season, you're like, okay, I really like these guys, or maybe the playoffs if they're a fringe team, or for going really far if they're a good team right now.
I think my team would be they were my Super Bowl pick, but it'd be the Saints. Remember when Michael Thomas went down? They like lost a couple games. It seems like now they've really gotten their mojo back, and they're just not missing a beat. You saw last week on Sunday Night Football, they just destroyed the Buccaneers and told everybody this is still our division. Like we're still top in this NFC too. So I think the Saints like have really shown like they're still an elite team, even though like people earlier on were questioning them.
What about you, Lucas? Do you have a team that you're very confident in to either make the playoffs if they're a fringe team or go really far if they're one of those top tier?
I think for me, I think a team that's kind of slowed down over the last couple weeks, or I guess maybe the last week, but I think has a good shot to make a nice run in the playoffs if they make it, could be the Colts. I mean, I think if Jonathan Taylor can kind of find his stride, and the rest of the running game can complement them, their defense is pretty legit. And so with a nice run game and a defense, the rest of their schedule is pretty tough. Like they are going to have to go through a few contenders and pick up some wins to be in a position to make the playoffs. But I think they have the tools to win a game or two in the postseason.
Yeah, I've been on the Colts for a while. This is just a team that I think you're right. They don't have it all put together yet, especially on the offensive side of the football. But I think if you look at that Ravens game, that game kind of got away from 'em a little bit, especially like once that Jonathan Taylor fumble return for a touchdown happened, all the momentum went to the Ravens because that Colts offense was moving the ball a lot better than I think people expected against a really good Ravens defense. It's just, the turnovers, and then you had that one interception that, to be completely honest, I don't think should have been an interception. The Marcus Peters one when he was falling down and they said he made a football move and fumbled. I think that was honestly a terrible call. But I think you're right. I'm a big
Coming
fan
from
of
the
the
Steelers
Colts.
fan.
Dude, I had the Ravens last week. You think I'm out here like I wasn't rooting against them. But yeah, I think that this is a team that if they're able to find their groove and get hot at the end of the season, because now is the stretch that's really important. We have, the first 8, 9, 10 weeks are kind of just the setup for the finale. You either put yourself in a position to just keep how you're doing, or you still have a chance to turn around these last couple of weeks of the season or last bunch of weeks of the season. So yeah, now is the time. I mean, I feel like I say it every week, but now is literally the time. You have to get hot if you want to be that team that can make a run. I mean, we saw the Titans last year. They were a team around like that week 7, 8, 9 kind of mark. They started getting really hot, started just their offense. I mean, Ryan Tannehill was just going off. Right now, if you take that 16-game stretch from when he first started and then into this season, he would have had the highest single-season passer rating of all time, I'm pretty sure. So if Phillip Rivers and that Colts team are able to get really hot, they might be able to do a similar thing that the Titans were able to do last season, especially like you said with their running game.